have this memory of me. Maybe I was 4 or 5 years old, and I can remember me playing in the garden and singing opera, or a kind of opera, I don't know, in French. When I was 14, and I went for the first time to see an opera with my school, and there was Madame Butterfly at San Carlo in Naples. I was sitting in the box and I was hypnotized by the singers and the music, and I thought inside me, I can do this, yeah, I think I can do this. But I didn't know how to do that, of course.
I first came across Carmen Giannattasio when I was directing a production of The Coronation of Popea at the Berlin Staatsoper with the Baroque specialist conductor René Jacobs, and we'd previously done the production with another soprano who wasn't available for Berlin. And René called me and he said, well, I found this girl, she's amazing, but she has a big voice, it is really big for Baroque music. And I said, well, I think that sounds really interesting. I said, but I think you will like her, she is feisty, she has character, she has sex appeal. So we did the rehearsals of Popea in Berlin with Carmen, and it was sort of love at first sight, because what I recognized, this was an artist who was so deeply serious, so musical, so committed to telling dramatic stories through music, that we were on the same wavelength, and I knew that this was the kind of artist that I enjoyed working with.
Il Pirata is going to be my 4th recording with Opera Rara, and actually we are at Opera Rara base, and this is kind of my second home.
I think Il Pirata, which was really the most successful opera up to that time that Bellini had written, is a near masterpiece, and it has moments of great mastery in it. Of course, the opera hasn't been recorded for a long time, mainly because it's very difficult to find the singers who can sing it. These roles are extraordinarily challenging. The role of Imogen is really challenging. They require a huge range of colour in the voice and a real emotional commitment. So it's in many ways really exhausting to do these pieces, because you can't present them in a sort of distanced way. You have to give 150% the whole time. The challenges are both technical and emotional, really, and histrionic. So you need to be a great vocal actor to sing the role of Imogen. So it is the first complete recording, and we felt that it was a good idea to make a complete recording, and we had Carmen Giannattasio available to sing the role of Imogen and José Bros to sing Il Pirata, which means that we actually have 2 people who could really do it, and you don't turn those opportunities up.
Il Pirata, and especially the mad scene of Imogen, is like the soundtrack of my life, or better, of my artistic life. I sang it first time for my diploma at the Conservatoire, and it was not very wise at that age, because I was very, very young, but my teacher, she chose it because my temperament. This is a very temperamental aria. I was invited to have a competition for the young project at La Scala, and I won a scholarship thanks to this aria.
Carmen brings to the role of Imogen a really, really beautiful voice and an incredible dramatic intelligence. She has a deeply instinctive musicality, which is like a well underneath her singing, which she can draw the water from the whole time. Famously, Maria Callas took on the role of Imogene. Her version of it is extraordinary. She only sings about half the opera, actually. But, well, I mean, there are a lot of cuts. Shall I say, there are a lot of cuts when everybody sang it. Partly, of course, these are live performances and they're taken from live.
This moment I'm really in despair and completely mad because my husband, Ernesto, has been killed by my lover, Gualtiero, and because this murder, he's going to be condemned to death. So I'm completely lost into myself because there is not a solution. I like very much bel canto repertoire. It's the field where I feel more, let's say, at home. I don't know, I can express better my feelings and my musicality and my abilities, I think, in this kind of repertoire. So I'm really, we say in Italian, sono molto affezionata.
What is so interesting about Verdi's opera Il Trovatore that Carmen will be singing at the Metropolitan Opera in my production in the next season is Trovatore comes at the end of a grouping of three operas, Rigoletto, Traviata, Trovatore, and in a strange way Trovatore is more backward looking towards the bel canto era than the other two operas, which are very forward looking, very revolutionary in their way within the terms of Italian opera of the time. But with Trovatore he's telling such a hyper-romantic story based on this insane play by the Spanish author Gutierrez. Verdi almost consciously is looking back to the bel canto models. And I think what's really interesting is Carmen Giannattasio being a specialist in the bel canto repertoire, some of it quite unknown, some of it quite unexplored in our day, bringing that knowledge to the singing of Leonora, where most sopranos that sing Leonora are going backwards, if you understand, from heavier, later Verdian roles backwards towards Leonora, whereas in fact, I think the correct approach is to recognise that she's a late bel canto heroine. And I think what's going to be really exciting about Carmen doing it is she's going to bring that awareness and she's going to bring that musicality and that wealth of knowledge, since she's sung so much of the rare bel canto repertoire.
Verdi is probably my favorite composer at the moment. I love Bellini, I love Puccini, I love Donizetti, but Verdi, when I have to perform Verdi's heroines, I feel very excited. Probably I think this is the most dramatic part in the whole opera, because it's the moment when she realizes he is in the tower. She listens to the chanting of the monks. It's very dramatic because she knows that it's the Miserere, and the Miserere is the chant for prisoners condemned to death. So the only solution in that moment to free him is to kill herself. There is a kind of dilemma in this opera, because she's poisoning her to make him free, but at the same time she's committing a mortal sin, being Catholic, being religious, believing in God. So this means she cannot meet him in the heaven because she's committing this big sin.
Trovatore, it's not really a different kind of singing, is it, from the Bellini?
Of course,
No.
I completely agree
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
Because I consider my approaching with Leonora is just. I think I sing it in the same way I sing Il Pirata or Donizetti, our Parisina, and I can see like the final scene of of Parisina is very similar to the Miserere,
Yeah,
written
absolutely.
by Verdi in Il Trovatore.
Yeah.
Generally, all Verdi characters, I mean, I speak concerning women, they are at the same time very fragile but strong. So their identities are very well defined from the beginning, from the starting of an opera. You can see how the character is already complete. And all Verdi's heroines, they are able to kill themselves in the name of love or freedom. Leonora is what I call in Italian un personaggio lunare. She's very connected with the moon, and the moon is one of the main characters in this opera. I love her very much. She's one of my favorite characters. She's very sweet, but at the same time she's strong. She has a strong will. She knows she's going to die for her lover and in the name of love. Of course, it is very important to go into very deeply into the character. When I read a score, when I read the music, I always try to think how the character thinks, not as Carmen is thinking. I always try to separate Carmen from the character I'm performing, I'm studying in that moment.
Carmen, in my experience, is the only Traviata that I've worked with, the only soprano who has done this production with me, who has had the courage to play that incredible loss of dignity, which is the reality of someone who is in extremis with this terrifying disease. And that was the next level of ultimate respect that I had for her, that she was prepared to put aside any sense of Carmen Giannattasio soprano in order to fully inhabit Violetta Valery, the woman who was dying of a horrific disease.
Leila Genscher, she was a great artist, and she was a great woman too, and she was my mentor, and I'm very grateful to her because she encouraged me in my first steps. I think the most beautiful thing is when, after so much rehearsing and sometimes not sleeping or eating very bad and rushing and feeling very tired, is when you finish your performance and you think, I've done something of unique, and you cannot repeat it because it's a live performance. It's not, you're not recording.
It's truly inspiring. It's truly wonderful to work with a singer like Carmen.